The maps called it empty land, a wide stretch of parchment at the edge of the known world, marked only with faded ink and a warning written in an older hand, "Here be silence." To most people, that meant danger. To Aaron Vale, it meant possibility. Aaron stood alone in a candlelit study, surrounded by stacks of journals, broken compasses, and relics collected from half-forgotten ruins across 3 continents. Rain tapped softly against the tall window behind him, and the city outside slept. Unaware that history was about to be disturbed, in his hands lay the object that had changed everything, a shard of black obsidian, smooth as glass, etched with symbols that did not belong to any known civilization. They curved and spiraled like constellations frozen in stone. Aaron had found it 6 months earlier in a collapsed desert temple, buried beneath centuries of sand and silence. At the time, he hadn't understood its importance. But now he did. He placed the shard beside an ancient manuscript, one he had purchased at great cost from a dying collector who whispered warnings with his final breath. As the candlelight flickered, the symbols on the shard aligned perfectly with markings in the book. Aaron exhaled slowly. "Orithus," he whispered, "the lost city, according to legend." Orithus was not merely abandoned, it vanished. An entire civilization erased from memory after a single night. Some stories claim the city angered the gods. Others said it learned secrets meant only for the stars. Most historians dismissed the tales as fantasy. Aaron never had. His father hadn't either. He remembered being a child, sitting beside a fire as his father spoke of places that refused to stay buried. "The world hides its greatest truths," his father once said. "Not to keep them secret forever, but to test who is worthy to find them." That night, Aaron made his decision. The expedition began at dawn. Supplies were packed with care, climbing gear, journals, preserved rations, medical kits, and navigation tools both modern and ancient. Aaron traveled light but prepared. He knew better than to challenge the unknown unarmed. 2 weeks later, civilization fell away behind him. Stone roads turned to dirt paths. Dirt paths vanished into jungle. The air grew thick with humidity, buzzing with insects and heavy with the scent of earth and decay. Sunlight struggled to pierce the canopy above, turning midday into a permanent twilight. Locals in the last village had refused to guide him further. "The jungle remembers," an old woman told him, gripping his sleeve with trembling fingers, "and it does not forgive." Aaron thanked her and went on alone. The jungle tested him immediately. Vines snared his legs. Sudden storms turned the ground into sucking mud. At night, distant roars echoed through the darkness, sounds too deep, too old to belong to anything familiar. Sleep came in fragments, interrupted by dreams of towering stone spires swallowed by green. On the 5th day, he found the first sign, a stone step, half buried, cracked with age but unmistakably shaped by human hands. Aaron dropped to his knees, brushing away moss and soil with reverence. The step descended into the earth, disappearing beneath centuries of growth. His heart pounded. He marked the location, photographed it, and pressed forward, following the direction the step suggested. The deeper he went, the stranger the jungle became. Trees grew twisted, their roots rising above the ground like skeletal fingers. Birds watched silently from the branches, their calls eerily absent. It was as if the forest was holding its breath. That night, as Aaron set up camp near a slow-moving river, he noticed something unsettling. The stars above were wrong. Not missing, but shifted. Familiar constellations bent ever so slightly, as if the sky itself had been altered. He recorded the observation, though he didn't know why his hands were shaking. On the 7th day, the jungle opened. Not gradually, but suddenly. Aaron stepped through a wall of foliage and found himself at the edge of a vast clearing. His breath caught in his throat. Before him rose the ruins of a city. Massive stone structures lay tangled in vines and roots, their surfaces carved with the same spiraling symbols as the obsidian shard. Towers leaned like exhausted giants. Stairways led nowhere. A wide central avenue stretched forward, cracked but intact, disappearing into shadow. Orithus was real. Aaron stood frozen, overwhelmed by the weight of the moment. Every dismissal, Every mocking laugh from scholars who called him foolish it all dissolved in the face of what lay before him. He stepped onto the ancient stone. The ground vibrated, not violently, subtly, like a distant heartbeat. Aaron paused, pressing his palm against the stone beneath his feet. It was warm, too warm. As he moved deeper into the city, details emerged. Murals lined the walls, depicting people gazing at the sky, building massive instruments that pointed toward the stars. There were no images of war, no kings on thrones, only scholars, builders, and watchers. This was not a city of conquest. It was a city of knowledge. At the center of the avenue stood a massive circular structure, part temple, part observatory. Its doors, though cracked and weathered, remained sealed. Symbols glowed faintly across their surface. Responding to Aaron's presence, he reached into his pack and withdrew the obsidian shard. The moment it came near the doors, the symbols ignited with light. The ground trembled again, stronger this time. Aaron stepped back, heart racing. "This place is awake," he murmured. A sudden sound echoed behind him. Footsteps. Aaron spun around, hand moving instinctively to the knife at his belt. The avenue behind him was empty, yet the footsteps continued, slow and deliberate, circling just beyond sight. Then came the voice, "You should not be here." It was calm, measured, human, but carrying an age that made Aaron's skin prickle. From the shadows between two fallen pillars, a figure emerged. Cloaked, face partially hidden, eyes sharp and unblinking. "I could say the same to you," Aaron replied, forcing steadiness into his voice. The stranger studied him for a long moment, then glanced at the glowing doors of the temple. "So," the figure said quietly, "the city has chosen again." Aaron swallowed. "What do you mean, chosen?" The stranger's gaze returned to him, heavy with meaning. "Orithus does not reveal itself by accident," they said. "And now that you've crossed its threshold, there is no turning back." The light from the ancient doors pulsed brighter. Deep beneath the city, something ancient stirred in Aaron. Vale realized that finding the lost city was only the beginning. The stranger stepped closer, boots scraping softly against stone that had not known footsteps for centuries. Up close, Aaron could see the lines etched into the person's face, not scars of battle, but marks of long years spent under open skies and unforgiving places. This was no ordinary wanderer. "Who are you?" Aaron asked, lowering his hand from the knife but keeping his stance ready. "A watcher," the stranger replied. "Like my family before me. We were left behind when Orithus fell, tasked with guarding what should never be awakened." The words sent a chill through Aaron's spine. Left behind by whom? The stranger did not answer. Instead, they gestured toward the glowing temple doors. The light was spreading now, crawling across the stone like living fire, illuminating symbols that shifted and rearranged themselves. "You brought the key," the watcher said, nodding toward the obsidian shard. "The city recognizes bloodlines, intent, and sacrifice. It does not respond to greed." Aaron looked down at the shard in his hand. It felt heavier than before, almost pulling him forward. "I didn't come to take anything," he said. "I came to understand." For the first time, the stranger's expression softened. "Then you may survive," they said. A deep, resonant hum rolled through the air, vibrating Aaron's ribs. The sealed doors groaned as ancient mechanisms awakened, stone grinding against stone. From the narrow gap forming between them, warm air rushed out, carrying the scent of dust, metal, and something sharper. Ozone. The stars above flickered. Aaron glanced upward, just in time to see the constellations shift again, aligning directly over the circular structure. Thin beams of light descended from the sky, striking the temple roof with impossible precision. "The city was built as a bridge," the watcher said quietly, "between earth and sky, between now and what comes next." The doors opened wider. Within, Aaron glimpsed towering columns etched with star maps, a central platform surrounded by rings of slowly rotating stone, and at its heart a suspended sphere of light, pulsing like a living sun. His breath caught. Every instinct screamed danger. Every dream he had ever chased screamed destiny. "If I step inside," Aaron said, voice barely above a whisper, "can I still leave?" The Watcher met his gaze. "No," they said honestly. "But if you turn away now, the city will sleep again, and the world may never know what it has forgotten." The hum grew louder. The shard in Aaron's hand flared with light. After a single steadying breath, Aaron Vale stepped forward, crossing the threshold as the ancient city of Orithus fully awakened. The moment Aaron crossed the threshold, the doors of the temple sealed behind him with a thunderous finality. Stone met stone, and the sound echoed through the chamber like a verdict passed long ago. For a heartbeat, darkness swallowed everything. Then the light returned. The suspended sphere at the center of the hall brightened, bathing the chamber in a soft, golden glow. Symbols along the columns awakened in sequence, flowing like liquid starlight. Aaron stood still, his breath shallow, afraid that even a careless step might disturb something fragile and ancient. "This place is alive," he whispered. "It is aware," the Watcher replied, their voice carrying strangely in the vast space. Orithus was built to remember what the world chose to forget. The chamber revealed itself slowly. Vast rings of stone hovered above the central platform, rotating in opposing directions without visible support. Each ring was carved with moving constellations, their patterns shifting in perfect harmony with the stars beyond the sealed ceiling. Thin threads of light connected the rings, forming a complex web that pulsed in time with the glowing sphere. Aaron approached the platform, drawn forward by a force he could not explain. With every step, images bloomed in the air around him, visions, memories preserved in light. He saw the people of Orithus. They were not warriors or conquerors. They were scholars, engineers, astronomers. Children studied the sky while elders recorded movements of distant suns. Towers rose not as fortresses but as instruments, designed to listen to the universe. They learned to predict more than seasons, the Watcher said. They learned patterns of fate. The visions shifted. The sky darkened. The stars twisted. The people of Orithus gathered in fear as something vast moved beyond the heavens, an event, not a creature. A convergence. A future catastrophe written into the motion of the stars themselves. Aaron's chest tightened. They saw the end. Yes, the Watcher said. And they chose to act? The light intensified. Aaron watched as the people constructed the sphere, a device capable of storing knowledge across time, anchoring reality during moments when history itself threatened to fracture. But such power demanded sacrifice. To activate it, the city had to be removed from the world, hidden between moments. Erased, Aaron murmured. Protected, the Watcher corrected. Until someone worthy arrived. The sphere pulsed violently, and the visions vanished. Silence fell. Then a new presence made itself known. A voice not spoken aloud but felt directly in Aaron's mind. Aaron Val, he staggered, gripping the edge of the platform. It knows my name. It knows all who enter, the Watcher said, kneeling in reverence. You have been measured? The rings above accelerated. Light poured into the sphere, and the floor beneath Aaron's feet dissolved into a field of stars. He was no longer standing in a chamber, he was standing in the sky. You seek knowledge, but knowledge changes those who carry it. I'm not afraid, Aaron said, though his voice trembled. Show me. The sphere responded. Aaron was flooded with visions of the present world, fractured, unstable, repeating the same mistakes in endless cycles. He saw cities rise and fall, wars ignited by ignorance, truths buried for comfort. Orithus must return, the voice declared. But not as ITWS. The stars dimmed. The floor reformed beneath Aaron's feet. The rings slowed, settling into a new configuration. The Watcher rose slowly, their expression grave. The city has chosen you as its bearer, they said. Its knowledge. And its burden. Aaron looked at his hands. Faint symbols now glowed along his skin, mirroring the markings on the obsidian shard. What happens now? He asked. The Watcher turned toward a sealed passage at the far end of the chamber, one that had not been there before. Now, they said, you must leave the city. and decide whether the world is ready for what you carry. As the passage opened, a cold wind swept through the chamber, carrying with it distant echoes of a future not yet written. And far beyond the jungle, the stars began to move once more. The passage stretched forward like a wound cut into the heart of the temple. Its walls smooth and dark, absorbing the light rather than reflecting it. Aaron hesitated at the threshold, the faint glow along his hands pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. Every instinct told him that once he stepped through, the man he had been would no longer exist in the same way. The Watcher moved beside him. "This path was not meant for feet alone," they said quietly. "It is a passage of memory. The city will test what you intend to do with what it has given you." Aaron nodded and stepped forward. The moment his foot crossed the boundary, the corridor shifted. Stone dissolved into mist, and the air thickened with images. He found himself standing in the familiar place, his childhood home. The fire crackled softly, just as it had in memory. His father sat across from him, younger than Aaron remembered, eyes bright with curiosity. "Why do you chase ruins, Aaron?" his father asked gently. Aaron swallowed hard. "Because they matter. Because forgetting is a kind of death." His father smiled sadly. The scene wavered, then shattered like glass. Aaron was pulled into another vision, this one unfamiliar. A future city, towering and luminous, powered by knowledge rather than conflict. People worked together across cultures and borders, guided by understanding instead of fear. The symbols of Orithus glowed faintly in the foundations. Unseen but essential. Then the vision darkened, the same knowledge, twisted. Cities burning. Skies filled with machines of war guided by stolen wisdom. Power without restraint. Truth turned into a weapon, Aaron cried out, clutching his head as the images collided. "I understand," he said aloud, voice breaking. "This isn't about discovery. It's about responsibility." The corridor solidified. Aaron found himself kneeling on stone once more, breath ragged, sweat cold on his skin. The Watcher stood a few paces away, eyes searching his face. "You have seen what few are allowed to see," they said. "The city needed to know if you would choose restraint over dominance." Aaron pushed himself to his feet. The glowing symbols on his hands dimmed slightly, settling into his skin like scars earned rather than wounds inflicted. "I won't reveal Orithus to the world all at once," he said. "Some truths need time. Some need protection." The Watcher studied him for a long moment, then inclined their head. "Then you may pass." The corridor opened into the open air. They emerged onto a high terrace overlooking the jungle. Dawn was breaking, painting the horizon with fire and gold. From this vantage point, the ruins of Orithus looked peaceful, almost asleep again. Vines had begun to reclaim the stones, as if the city itself had chosen to fade back into legend. Aaron felt a deep ache in his chest. "Will it disappear again?" he asked. "Yes," the Watcher replied. "To most eyes, but not to yours. Orithus now exists within you as much as beneath the earth." A distant rumble rolled through the ground. Far below, the temple doors sealed, the light vanishing completely. The stars overhead returned to their familiar positions. As if nothing extraordinary had occurred, yet everything had changed. The Watcher removed a small object from beneath their cloak, a thin metal ring etched with the same symbols as the shard. "This will guide you back, should the city call again," they said, "and it will warn you when others seek what you carry." Aaron accepted it, feeling its quiet weight. "What about you?" he asked. "I remain," the Watcher said simply, "as we always have." Aaron took one last look at the clearing, committing every detail to memory. He knew the world beyond the jungle would demand answers, proof, explanations, certainty. But Orithus had taught him something far more important than knowledge. It had taught him patience. As Aaron Vale began the long journey back toward civilization. The first whispers of change rippled outward, subtle, unseen. Scholars would soon stumble upon fragments of impossible equations. Astronomers would notice stars behaving in unexpected ways. Inventors would dream of solutions they could not yet explain, and somewhere deep beneath the jungle, the lost city waited, watching, remembering, and preparing for the moment it would be needed again. Aaron Vale did not return to the world as a conqueror or a prophet. He returned quietly. Weeks passed as he emerged from the jungle, thinner, scarred, and changed in ways no wound could explain. When traders and villagers asked what he had found, he spoke only of ruins swallowed by vines and the dangers of chasing legends too far. Most accepted the answer. A few sensed the truth and learned not to ask again. But the city had not released him. At night, Aaron dreamed in constellations. Symbols traced themselves across his mind like living ink, unfolding equations, histories, and warnings older than nations. He filled journal after journal, writing not in excitement, but in discipline, carefully filtering what the world could know and what it must not. Orithus had trusted him with a balance, and balance demanded sacrifice. Years passed. Aaron became known as a brilliant but cautious scholar. His discoveries reshaped understanding in subtle ways, energy systems that mimicked natural cycles, architectural designs that aligned with celestial rhythms, communication networks built on harmony instead of dominance. Each revelation arrived just early enough to guide humanity forward, never far enough to destabilize it. Some called him a genius. Others called him dangerous. Governments invited him. Corporations tried to buy him. Militaries watched him. Aaron declined, deflected, or disappeared when the questions came too close to the truth. The ring from the Watcher warmed whenever eyes with the wrong intentions turned toward him. He was not alone. There were others, few, scattered across the world, who had touched fragments of Orithus without knowing its name. Aaron found them through patterns, through dreams that overlapped like echoes. Together they formed no organization, no hierarchy. Only a shared understanding. Knowledge was not power, it was responsibility. Then the stars began to drift. Astronomers noticed first. Minor shifts at the edge of observable space. Patterns that did not match prediction models. A convergence approaching slow, vast, inevitable. The same one Orithus had foreseen. Aaron felt it before the alarm sounded. The symbols along his skin burned for the first time in years, and the sphere's voice returned, softer now, urgent. The time approaches. Aaron stood alone beneath the night sky, looking up at the stars that had shaped his life. "The world isn't ready," he said quietly. "Not fully." "It will never be," the voice replied. "Ready is not required, willingness," the ring guided him back. The jungle opened as if it had been waiting. Vines parted. Paths revealed themselves where none had existed before. When Aaron reached the clearing, Orithus rose not from the ground but from perception. The ruins shimmered into clarity, whole and radiant, no longer broken. The Watcher was there. "You have carried the burden well," they said. "Now you must decide how it ends." Aaron entered the temple once more. The sphere pulsed brighter than ever, the rings above spinning in perfect alignment. The city was no longer hiding, it was preparing. "The convergence will tear through reality," Aaron said, "unless something anchors it." The Watcher nodded. "Orithus can do so. But the city cannot remain and hold the world together at the same time." Aaron understood. "To stabilize the future," he said, "the city must be consumed." "Why, yes," the sphere confirmed. "And so must its bearer." Aaron closed his eyes. He thought of his father's voice, of the child he once was, staring at maps and dreaming of answers, of a world still flawed, still fragile, but capable of wonder. "I accept," he said. Light erupted. The symbols along Aaron's body lifted from his skin, flowing into the sphere. His memories joined the city's, his doubts, his hopes, his love for a world that would never know his final choice. Orithus folded inward, compressing knowledge, matter, and time into a single radiant point. The convergence struck and broke. Across the universe, the stars settled back into their ancient paths. On Earth, no one noticed the disaster that never came, only a sudden sense of calm, as if a storm had passed unseen. When the jungle fell silent, the clearing was empty. No ruins, no temple. Only stone warmed by sunlight and a single obsidian shard resting at the center. The Watcher knelt, head bowed. "He became the bridge," they whispered, "as the city always intended." Far away, a child looked up at the night sky and felt an unexplainable pull toward the stars. Scholars would one day discover theories that felt older than discovery itself. Humanity would stumble, rise, and endure. Because someone had chosen restraint over glory. And somewhere beyond time, Aaron Vale watched over the world, not as an explorer, but as a guardian woven into the fabric of the stars themselves. The END.